we can begin. So first of all, I'd like to know a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in communications or the career of PR? Where did you study, and why did you decide to study?
Okay, I started the public relation work in 1967, a long time ago. Exactly 50 years ago, I started dealing with the public relations. I worked as a journalist that time. I worked as a press journalist, a photojournalist, and also I worked in a press department of a Hungarian company. It was very good to learn what does it mean public relations, what does it mean the publicity, what does it mean the mass communication, what does it mean the marketing communication. It was a reason why I started in 1967 that I started to not learn only, but to work as well. And after I finished the university, after I finished the studies, my first diploma, my first degree is aesthetics and philosophy. And the second is it's an economy. You know, it's very interesting. At that time in Hungary, we called not economy, but political economy. This was the title. You know, this was the socialism, the communism era in Hungary. Therefore, I learned as a political economy, and I had got a teacher's diploma. And I taught political economy, I taught aesthetics, and that time I was journalist, mainly the photojournalist. I started in the work as a photojournalist.
In that time, how was the freedom of the press in Hungary?
This is a very, very interesting question. I waited this question, and I would like to answer the question. It's not only the free press, because the press, it was not really free. It was not, I have to tell you, it was not really free, the press. And therefore, this was the reason why the public relations doesn't work that time. Wait a minute, I have to tell you something. I have to tell a little bit theory and the political theory. We have in Hungary a sentence. I will try to translate this sentence from Hungarian to English because we call 3T. 3T. What does it mean 3T? It was three words which started with letter T. But it is impossible to translate from T, but I will translate to English these letters, these words, these expressions. The first, it was T, tiltott, means it was prohibited. This was the first, prohibited. The second, T, it was T, I tolerated. And the third T, it's támogatott, means supported. That time, the journalism, it was not prohibited because it was journalism. It was no problem. We wrote magazines, we wrote newspapers, and I made photos. I started in photos in the theater photo. It was absolutely free of me. It was no problem. I take photos on the theaters and publish in the magazine. It was no problem. But really, it was not a free press. Therefore, we listened to the radios, for instance, not the Hungarian radio, because it was official. This was only the government's propaganda, but we could learn the Free America. Free America, this is a good translation, help me please. Szabad Európa és az Amerika hangja. The Voice of America. This was the Voice of America. This was, okay. And Free Europe. The Voice of America and Free Europe. This was the two. The Voice of America came from America. The Voice, the news. And the Free Europe, it came from Germany. The editor was in Germany, but it was on Hungarian language.
Okay.
This was the free press, but not official press in Hungary. Okay, it was government press, of course, because all magazines, all newspapers was the hand of the Hungarian government.
So you worked for the Hungarian government?
No.
As a photojournalist or an independent newspaper?
I was absolutely an independent. I was an independent, like we call freelance, the freelance journalist. I worked. Mainly, when I started, mainly I worked as a photojournalist as a theater. I started take photos, theaters, and published in the Film, Theater and Music. This was the title of the magazine, Film, Theater and Music. And it's published, my photos in the Film, Theater and Music magazine.
Wow. I'm a journalist myself, so it's very nice. And how did your career evolve from journalism and photojournalism towards more of the publicity and public relations?
When I was in the university, when I studied in the university aesthetics and philosophy, I had a very good friend. She worked in a foreign trade company. And she asked me, why not came to our company? Because we need a young, talented and young, active voice. And I went to the company. It was the name Camel Impacts. This was a foreign trading company. And I was the first publicity executive. Means I had to work as an advertising person, but mainly the publicity. This was my task. And I worked that time as a publicity executive because that time it was no public relations officially in Hungary. But publicity we had, but not public relations. You know, this was tolerated. Tolerated in the foreign trading companies. You know why? Because we had to use the exactly the same tools like the Western part of the or competitors. We had to. Therefore, it was tolerated to me to make public relations because our competitors are using in Germany, in France, in Italy, and in United States the public relations. Therefore, they tolerated and they allow me to make public relations. And I started it was in the early 70s. And my first really huge international public relation campaign, I made it 1976, 1977. This was a worldwide public relation campaign, and I won a prize in Hungary, but it was very interesting because it was no public relation association, it was no public relation organization, but the Hungarian Advertising Association made this competition, and I won with the Palma, this was the name, Palma Airbag, worldwide public relation campaign. It was 12 countries. I organized in 12 countries. Germany, this was the main in Germany, and Australia involved, and United States also involved in this campaign.
Can you tell us a little bit about the campaign, the details,
yes,
and why it was so successful?
Because we don't use, we used advertising, but it was not the main message on the advertising. We used the personal communication. The personal communication, I will give an example. We found the first customer who bought the first airbag from our company in 1957. And I found this person. It was lived in Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and we found it.
An airbag.
Yeah. And that time, the airbag, it was a very important product of Hungary because the 23% of the total world producing in the airbag produced by Hungary. 23% of the whole world. We was the leader of the airbag market. And for instance, in 1977, I invited this first guy who bought the first 5,000 airbags to Netherlands, and I invited, and I made a huge cake. And he was I made a celebration party, and he sliced the cake.
Wow.
It was not advertising, it was really public relations, because it's a personal communication.
Yes.
And of course, the events. This was the most important for us, to organize events. And this was the reason why it was so successful, because we organized events. And this was the first video film made by Hungary, the Palma Rock. This was the title of the film, Palma Rock.
How is it spelled?
Palma, P-A-L-M-A. Palma, P-A-L-M-A, airbag. And the title was the film Palma Rock.
Rock.
I had a good friend who had a music band, and the music band made a rock. I wrote the text in English and in Hungarian, both languages, and one of the most popular singer of Hungary song the Palma Rock. And we made a film, it was a 12 minutes film about the Palma airbags and Palma Rock. And it's published in 12 different countries, the film.
Wow, that's great.
And I made the tape recorder cassettes, and I gave the cassettes to all department stores where sold the Palma airbags. And the whole day, the Palma Rock was in the supermarket, like Kmart. The Kmart was one of the biggest, the largest customer, and they used the Palma Rock the whole day in the supermarket, in the Kmart shops.
For the beds.
For the beds, yeah.
Oh wow.
This is the reason why it was very successful. Because we found not the advertising possibilities, we found the public relation tools. How should we introduce, how should we involve the environment into the Palma feeling?
So you think it was one of the first actual PR, pure PR campaigns in Hungary?
I don't think so. I know exactly. This was the first PR film in Hungary, the Palma Rock, because it was a combination technique. The technique was the important. That time it was only one video camera in Hungary.